Podcast, an exploration of watches, trends, and culture with a few adventures along the way. I'm your host, Blake Bettner. This week, I'm happy to welcome my friend Thomas Calara to the podcast. Thomas and I have worked together on various occasions over the years, and Thomas now finds himself working at Analog Shift. We talk a little bit about that experience and the kinds of watches that he gets to see on a daily basis. We also talk a lot about F1. We are just coming out of a race weekend, round 6 of the F1 season down in Miami. I was there for one of the days of the weekend. I take in the practice session and the qualifying session for the sprint race. I was there with H. Moser, and they had a new release in partnership with their brand partner, I suppose, BWT Alpine F1 team. The watch is a new Streamliner. I've got more details of that now live on the site, but I have my full thoughts and a full photo report of the experience coming to Robb Report soon. So keep an eye out for that. I will leave a link to that as soon as that goes live, and you're probably able to find a note about it on social as well. Really great experience down there. Huge thank you to H. Moser for the hospitality. I did have a chance to chat with Pierre Gasly, who was just lovely, and really kind of explore the connection between H. Moser and Alpine and what kind of attracts those two to each other. The family connection there with both kind of retaining the family business. Pierre comes from a family of racers, and of course H. Moser and C is run by a pair of brothers, Bertrand and Edouard. So that full report, again, will be coming to Robb Report sometime soon here. We also talk a little bit about a watch that I have in for review, the Notice Trail Trekker, done in collaboration with Raven. Other than that, this is just a couple of friends catching up about watches and F1. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and with that, here's my discussion with Thomas Calara. Thomas Calara, thanks so much for joining me, man. It's good to see you, my friend. How are you?
Dude, I am fantastic. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we've been trying to make this work for a little while now, so I'm happy to have you on the podcast. You and I go not way back, but back a little ways. We've of course worked together a few times. You are now with Analog Shift with our friends over at Analog Shift. So we'll get into that and how that's going. Maybe for people who are less familiar with you, give yourself a brief intro, and then we can jump into a wrist check.
Yeah, for sure. I'm Thomas Calara. I like watches.
That's a good start.
So yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, for those who don't know me, or for those that do know me, you might have been familiar with my work, just covering the industry, with some photography, with some writing, probably up to debate which is better. But I feel like over the course of the past few years, I've gotten better. Thanks to you, Blake. I consider you as a mentor, and kind of just nurturing my style of writing and whatnot. And being able to combine my interests outside of watches is kind of like my thing. So just previous work that I've had, you could tell there's just a strong concentration in trying to find a way to align my other interests with watches, whether that's storytelling, whether that's just other activities or hobbies that I'm interested in, sort of like diving, which thanks to watches, I was able to get my my PADI certification. And just a whole bunch of other things. But I guess when it just comes down to it, I'm just inherently curious, and this industry and this hobby in general has allowed me to explore these different interests in a way that I wouldn't have thought was possible. Because
Yeah.
prior to this, for those who don't know me, I was working in the healthcare field as in physical therapy, and uh, I made the pivot several years ago to cover the industry,
Yeah.
and one thing led to another, and now I am part of the Analog Shift team.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's great. And you came from California, of course.
Hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, somewhat of a neighbor to the very first guest that we had on the Deep Track
Right.
podcast, Mr. Wesley Smith of the Standard H, and moved over to the East Coast.
Right.
Look
Yeah.
at you.
It's one of those things where you listen to someone on a podcast and you feel like you know them, that you're friends with them, and then you get to meet them in person, and they're like, who is this complete crazy person that's just talking to me right now? So it was one of those things where I had to hop in Wes's DMs and just kind of make an intro, and I wanted to meet him up. And again, he's kind of like along that same like vibe of just, he's super curious,
Yep.
and he's a great interviewer.
Yep.
So listener, go listen to his podcast, in addition to listening to this podcast. But yeah, and he's just a great dude, and I'm glad that um we're kind of all in the same circle. It's one of those things where it's a birds of a feather
Yeah.
sort of
Yeah.
thing, and I feel like we all have this like-minded interest in the same things.
Yeah, and I like the positive energy that both you and Wesley have. I absolutely thrive on that kind of stuff, so
Yeah.
I've long appreciated the both of you for that. Thomas, what do you run on your wrist today?
Today I have my Doxa Sub 300. It's
Okay,
the
the
Shark Hunter,
non-T version.
the non-T
Okay, I think the
50th
non-T is the way to
anniversary.
go, right? You gotta
It
have that
is
that big crystal, and that's the
right.
only watch that I would say that on. By the way, I like my flat crystals, you know.
Yeah. But we can get into this. If you're gonna go T, go 200T.
Go 200T.
You got to go
Okay,
200T. I don't know if you
all
had
right.
some time with the Doxa 200T, or if you have any thoughts about it. But yeah, this sub 300 50th anniversary Shark Hunter doesn't have the Aqua Long logo. So it's just stark. You've got the white hands. So it's nicknamed the White Shark. Dude, it's awesome. And I have it on a aftermarket bracelet. So the beads of rice, again, like, this is kind of like, I'm pretty sure people feel a certain way about their bracelets and the rubber straps. I myself felt that there was too much of a flare on the first link of
Yeah,
the original sub
like the
300
OEM.
bracelet.
Yeah, yeah,
So this one is a Yuboki's aftermarket bracelet, and it doesn't have that flare, and it kind of adds that much more of a vintage vibe to the watch. So
yeah.
I love it. And I'm down to two watches now. I
Two
pared down.
watches. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, two watches that I've purchased. I'm down to the Explorer
Okay.
14270
Yeah.
and the Doxys Sub 300.
I would have
That's
guessed the Explorer. I would have
right.
that would have been my guess. That's the watch that like I associate with you just by
Okay.
default, I suppose.
Right. I
So
hope I can live up to that,
it's
to
a
what the
big
Explorer is all
yeah,
about.
it's a big
Yeah.
responsibility to be known as the
It's
Explorer
a
guy,
it's
right?
a yeah, yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Um, well, I'm wearing. I've been. I'm just getting back. I was in Miami this weekend, not the entire weekend. But I was down there with H Moser
Hmm.
and the Alpine team. But I had a watch waiting for me when I got back for review. I only took one watch down to Miami with me, and it was my Sea Dweller 16600. I'll have some more content on that coming soon, so keep an eye out. But I had a watch that I had been that I asked for a while back, and it kind of slipped my mind. But it's the Notice Trail Trekker.
Awesome.
So I've been excited about this watch and to see this watch and to experience more watches with this particular Miyota movement in it, which has been
Hmm.
kind of like all the rage, obviously, as it's a relatively small movement that has, of course, the quote unquote true GMT, the Flyer GMT functionality with an independently adjustable hour hand, and it's got this pretty slick Cerakote bezel and like kind of sagey colorway across the case and even the dial. So it's a sharp watch for sure. I'm happy that it exists. I've got a few like little niggles with it here and there, but overall I think it's a really cool watch from Notice, and I think the Notice guys have been doing some pretty cool stuff lately. So
Hmm.
so really happy to see this one and again spend some more time with it. I'll have like a full video review type thing of this going up
Hmm.
relatively soon. Did you see this watch when it came out? What would you did you
I
like it? What did you think of this watch?
So yes, I aesthetically, I love all the little design cues about it.
Yeah.
Definitely, there are some. It's 16570 kind of
Vibes.
ethos about yeah,
Yeah,
vibe about
yeah,
that
yeah.
watch, right? But what's interesting that you mentioned and how it looks in the metal, it's got the sagey color, right? Because I've
Yeah.
seen some photos, it's got that matte darkish gray, but the fact that there is that tint of green.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's because of the sandblasted texturing, or lack thereof texturing, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's the thing with Cerakote. Like, it can look like it's hard to describe, like a plastic wrap over something. Like this is
Gotcha.
it takes away the kind of like crispness
Mm-hmm.
of like some of the finer details, I think. And this one has that, fixed 24-hour bezel, of course, with the kind of etched
Mm-hmm.
numerals. But it looks like it was Cerakoted like around those numerals. So some of them they're like maybe slightly bubbly or something like that. It's not quite as like 100% crisp. So I was wondering if they would like Cerakote it and then after the fact like mill those numbers in, if it would look a little more
Right.
like, crisp, but that might
Yeah.
be hard. I say that like it's a obviously just do that. Like
Right.
I'm sure they thought of that and this was just like the best solution. So but it
Mm-hmm.
also keeps those numbers like black in this
Right.
kind of like that stealthy theme,
Yeah.
except for the
On
hour
that
mark.
note, do you
So
still find that even though it's kind of like tone on tone in a way, how's the legibility for those markers
well, the legibility
on
for
the
the
bezel?
markers is good, but the hands get a little bit lost just because of the shape of the
Mm,
hand. So there's like kind of like these thin, yeah, kind of thin applications of loom. And this is just kind of my first impressions. And the hour markers are like quite large, and they really stand up off of that darker base, which is great. So that part is very legible. It's really just kind of like picking up the hands, and the bright orange 24-hour hand is kind of like the first thing that my eye jumps to on
right.
there, and then you kind of have to like readjust and find the the hour
Mm-hmm.
and minute hands. uh
Yeah,
this is me being exceedingly nitpicky, of
for
course,
sure.
but in
For
this,
sure.
in this realm,
As one does,
as look,
as a
yes,
watch, as a watch nerd does. Yeah.
this is what I, it's what we do for a
Right.
living. So
Right.
it's kind of the things that like my brain first goes to,
Of
but then you
course.
find other things where like the personality of the watch transcends that, like the little niggles that you have, and then they all kind of
Mm-hmm.
ends up adding up to like more than the sum of its parts type of
Mm-hmm.
situation, and you like the watch for other reasons. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you'd say the same about all the watches that you've owned. Like I wouldn't say any of the watches I have are like perfect by any stretch. Like I've got little niggles with every single watch that I
Right.
own and that I handle. And I think some of them, like again, you just chalk it up to like the great personality of the watch. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Mm-hmm.
But for prospective buyers or people kind of thinking about these watches that don't have the opportunity to see them, then I think
Mm-hmm.
it's like only fair that we like get into the nitpicky stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Like
For
there's
sure.
nothing wrong with that. So,
Right.
but I'm excited to be
Yeah,
spending some time with the watch. So,
definitely. And I shout out to those guys over at Notice. And that's also a collaboration with the folks over at Raven Watches,
yeah, with
right?
Raven,
That's
and
right.
there's
Yeah.
yeah, Steve, I think over there.
Right.
There is the Raven. Yeah, I'm glad you called that out because I
Yeah.
totally forgot about it. There's the Raven like kind of crest
Mm-hmm.
down
Right.
at 6 o'clock on the dial, which is like dark. And the dial is dark, so it's not like it jumps off or anything, but it's there and it's
Right.
a cool symbol, and it doesn't say
Mm-hmm.
Raven or anything like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a cool tie-in for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For
Yeah.
sure.
I mean, and those guys, especially over at Notice, they're doing some cool things. They've had some cool collaborative pieces that have come out,
Yeah.
and it's you know, with the niggles, you also have like a respect for the small details that these guys pay attention to, and I feel like Notice has been um paying notice to
They,
those details, right?
they
Right,
yeah,
like
they got them on lockdown, especially
yeah,
in this price point, because this thing,
right.
like, it costs, I
Hmm.
forget, like under $2,000. I think
Yeah.
well under
Hmm.
$2,000. So
Yeah. But you look
important
at
to
the
keep that in
Nodex
mind.
clasp, right? They have that nifty little push button self-adjusting clasp. That's part of their like whole bracelet system.
Yeah.
And then you also have, I believe, single-sided screws. It's just those like little things that make it easier for someone to just adjust the watch, wear and wear it for hopefully a long time. So
Yeah.
shout out
Yeah.
to those guys.
Absolutely.
They're doing a great job. And yeah, that's a awesome wrist check.
Yeah, I'll maybe get Wes on the podcast
Yeah,
at some
for
point
sure.
here. They're good people over there. So I was I was down in Miami for the F1 stuff, but only for some of the qualifying and the practice session, and then I made it back up here to New York. Um, H. Moser released a new watch. Let me see if I can get this right. The Streamliner Cylindrical Tourbillon Skeleton. Skeleton.
Okay.
It's like one of those watches where the name is like exactly what it is, right? So
Hmm.
there's no,
Right.
it's there's no ambiguity about about what it is. Literally that. It's a streamliner. It has
Right.
a cylindrical hairspring tourbillon,
Right.
and the dial is open work. It's a skeleton, so it's exactly what
Yep.
it does. Exactly what it says on the tin. So they released the one in Shanghai with kind of a blue theme, and then they released one here in Miami as a follow up with a pink theme that are kind of a play on the colors of the BWT Alpine livery, car livery, which I think for a while has been like since they've had BWT as a sponsor, one of the more like distinctive liveries on the grid. Which because it's the BWT has this like pink, like light pink undertone. So some of their cars have had this like blues and pinks. They kind of have this like bubblegum look
Hmm.
almost.
Yeah.
I spent in
Yep.
years past, I feel like it's been even like more. This year it's more like the black like carbon is there and then like hits of blue and then hits of pink. So I
Hmm.
think the car looks really cool. It's really easy to like spot. This year, of course, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly are their drivers this year. Um, Pierre coming over from what was AlphaTauri,
Hmm.
and and of course Fernando Alonso that was with Alpine over to Aston Martin, and this was a
Aston
couple of
Martin.
years
Yep.
ago. So the team did not quite have the start of the season that I think they were hoping for, but I think they knew that going into it. The car didn't quite hit the
Hmm.
expectations, their development expectations. So, but I
Yeah.
will say they've made faster progress than I expected them to. And this weekend, they scored their first points of the season, and they look like they're kind of like firmly midfield runners, I would say, which is like, stronger than I think they would have expected. Ocon finished P10 and Gasly finished P12, I think. So not too
Hmm.
far outside of the points.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I feel like they can
yeah,
make some good progress in the midfield. They could those both of those drivers have strong personalities. They're,
yeah.
high level competitors, and
And
if
both race
they
winners, by the way.
right,
Yeah.
exactly,
So
exactly. It's as if they could just learn how to play nice, be on the same page,
yeah, yeah.
then maybe they can make some progress this season.
Yeah, yeah, they're hard drivers, especially
For sure.
Ocon, who's not
Oh
afraid
yeah,
to throw his elbows out, even if you're his teammate. And he was
yeah,
like that with Fernando Alonso back when
right,
there was some
yeah,
hair-raising like moments of like whoa, and there was a
yeah,
few of those this week in
yeah.
Miami too,
Yep,
which
he's
is
got a
fine.
track
Like it's
record,
good
man.
racing, and look, no harm, no foul. If like they're not making contact, then it's just hard racing as far as I'm
Right.
concerned, and that's like what I want to see. So.
Yeah. So speaking of hard contact, did you catch that like uh Checo just almost clipping Max right on that first
I
turn?
think he caught like maybe a millimeter or something
Right.
of his rear
Yeah.
diffuser.
Oh, so he
Oh my
did catch him.
goodness, though. He like activated bowling mode there on
Yeah.
that first corner.
Right.
And it was kind of like Lewis did the same thing in the sprint race. And it's like,
Hmm.
the brakes are just too cold. The car doesn't do quite what you think it's going to do. And if you see a gap, you can't just like gun it for it because the car's not going to react quite the way that why they know, like I think, but I don't know. I've never seen him like a more lucky bit of
Yeah.
like just sailing between a few cars
Hmm.
like that without making contact. I
Yeah.
mean, of course, that close to taking Max
Yeah.
and himself out, and probably a Ferrari as well. Uh,
Hmm.
which of course would have opened up the race to be anybody's game. But thankfully that didn't happen, and we got like a good, like easily the best race of the season. I
Yeah.
would say in terms of like the competitiveness towards the front,
Hmm.
which was awesome. And we'll come back to that. Just want to get your first, if you have any takes on the watches. I know that watches
Yeah.
like this are maybe like a little bit outside of our wheelhouse.
For
But
sure.
the Streamliner I think is kind of a cool watch, and I like the kind of informality of the pink rubber strap.
Hmm.
And I tell you, the watch was very light on the wrist, which I thought was cool. And I like the like lume use on the little pink dial section. So it's still like quite legible. I know that's kind of like secondary to
Yeah.
on a watch like this, but
Right.
again, that's still just where my head goes when I look at this stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and I think the watch itself looks like pretty awesome, and I like the use of that pink corundum crystal there. I think is really cool. So yeah, Yeah, Moser, I've been kind of like a low key fan of for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they've matured a lot, like over the last handful of years, and this is like a
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool watch that still adds some levity to very serious watchmaking. So,
Right. Yeah, I
only
mean,
20 of these being made, 98 grand. What do you think?
right. Yeah. It's a again, I've had my handful of experiences and hands-on time with the streamliner,
Hmm.
and in its form, when it's on its bracelet and it's got that snake like
Yeah,
bracelet.
like
It's
scale, like bracelet. Yeah,
exactly, yeah, it's silky smooth. I've had some hands-on time with that undefeated collab, and then
yeah,
there was that solid gold one. um and I just feel like this is just another iteration and a fun iteration at that, with and it also plays on the whole BWT livery,
yeah.
right? I as much as I am a bracelet guy, I feel like my next logical step, stepping away from a bracelet, is a rubber strap. So fan of
Okay,
that.
okay.
Yeah. And we were seeing a lot of stone. So is this a stone dial? Is that a pink
It's like
stone?
a synthetic, it's like basically like ruby or like
Okay.
sapphire, like how they would make that. Corundum, I think is what it's called. Very,
Interesting.
very hard. But that's the
Okay.
most interesting part of the dial to me, because it's
Right.
not like some of the pictures make it look like super saturated, but it's really not. Like it's very translucent, and it's kind of like light pink that you only really pick up at like certain angles. So, to me, that's like the most dynamic part of the dial, which is saying a lot considering the rest of the considering the rest of the dial.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's what that material is.
Right. Yeah, it's those two things. It's those types of exotic dials, and tourbillons as well. Those are the two things that recently I've just been have an increased level of appreciation for. And it's just one of those things that you have to have in hand and to see in person to understand, okay, this is what this is all about. Because there's only so much a photo can do to capture a
Yeah,
tourbillon,
yeah.
right? And it's one of those things where you kind of have to see it, and it's just like, I get it.
Yeah, you got to see this thing
Yeah.
moving, and when in this with the cylindrical hairspring, it has like it has like this towering depth. So it's really cool to see in motion. And the cage, the top bridge of the cage is done in blue here, so it's kind of like a nice play off of the pink.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Beautiful.
pretty cool watch in motion. I like, yeah, you and I are kind of like old school funky sport watch guys.
Yes.
So this is maybe like a little bit out of our wheelhouse, but I think we both have an appreciation for stuff like this. So I like seeing things like
Yeah.
that are kind of like crazy like this. I agree with you though. When I think of the Streamliner, I think of that bracelet. Like that
Yeah.
bracelet is its own thing, and it is special. Like it's a really cool bracelet. But people that buy this thing will have the option to get the bracelet with it, which
Very
I
cool.
would imagine that every single one of them will do. And then
Right.
just have the pink strap for, I don't know, whenever they're, want to let their hair down a little bit and get crazy,
Listen, that
right?
rubber strap, that is the definition of, or that, yeah, rubber strap, that's a definition of letting your hair down there. That's very
Yep.
Miami.
Yep, exactly. I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so being in Miami is cool, and seeing the F1 cars is always a really incredible experience. There's something about these cars and the experience of seeing them just does not translate on TV, like the speed that these
Oh,
cars
yes.
are taking a corner or what they sound like. So it's cool to get that experience, and this is my first race this season, so it was great to see the new cars. Really new, but slightly like things are have been about the same the last few years, with the dominance, of course, of Red Bull,
Hmm.
and other teams kind of show flashes. But last year, about mid-season, McLaren brought some updates to their car, which had been, a bit of a dog up to that point in these new regulations, and it kind of turned their season around. And this weekend, we kind of saw like the culmination of their turnaround to take place, with Lando Norris taking the win on merit, basically on track. The safety car, yeah, I know, but they all bunched up and they were right next to each other when they restarted, Max and Lando, and he built that gap on pace alone.
Hmm.
And not only that, I don't think there was anything wrong with Sergio's car. I don't know if
Hmm.
he had a problem with his car or what, but I mean, Lewis had that gap like cemented at like a second for almost the entire second half of the race, which I was also. I think maybe they might have been on. He was on mediums and Sergio on hards or something like that. But I don't know.
Hmm.
Like either way, it looked like. Um, oh, there's some close battles
Right.
that are happening here that made me feel like we are in for maybe a more competitive second half of the season than I guess last 3/4 of the season
Hmm.
than I initially imagined that we would. So hats off to Lando for taking the win. Did you watch the race? What were your impressions? What did you
Yeah.
think? Were you
So
excited? Are you a
I,
Lando guy?
you know what? I appreciate uh, his personality is I'm like neither here nor there for, but
Sure, sure.
but I think he's a talent.
Yeah,
And that last 20 laps, it's just an example of his evolution as a driver and his growth as a competitor. And it wasn't one of those things where Verstappen got knocked out of the race, right? And as you
yeah,
said, purely on merit, mega drive by him.
yeah,
There were plenty of battles, and he pulled it out.
yeah,
It wasn't he didn't get saved by a crash on the track. Yes, there was that safety car, but he pulled it out, and there's nothing more that I like seeing than seeing someone like win. And then there's something about just a sports someone who in sports in general that's just like reduced to tears, that's like I have a soft spot for.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
and you think about that, these kids, they're competing their whole lives, and this is on the grandest of grandest stages,
yeah,
and he pulls it out, so hats
yeah,
off to him. And yes, I am hoping for more of that,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
and again, just a lot of like cool, like weird things happening, and like signs winning a race after having surgery. And
yep, yep.
it's
Love
cool,
it.
man. And yeah, and the fact that it happened on an American grand on an American track,
Yep,
I
yep.
guess that makes it cooler. And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
It was cool to see poor Logan Sargent getting knocked out of his home race.
Right.
I feel for him.
Yeah.
Um, what was your take on? I feel like this was maybe the most controversial thing that I didn't really realize was controversial, but I gotten a few notes about it on Instagram after I posted a picture of either Carlos or Charles in the car commenting on how much I like the colorway and people being disappointed with the colorway.
Oh,
I guess it was
yeah.
something that was built up, like hey, this baby blue's coming, and like people were upset that the car didn't go far enough, because
Right.
it was kind of like the typical red, but with some blue veins kind of
Hmm.
thrown in there. Yeah, I thought it all worked together. It looked kind of funky, and it was unexpected. But the more people pointed it out to me, I was like, yeah, I suppose it could have gone further. And then I recall, I think back to 2021 season. Well, for a couple of reasons. First of all, that's when Lando should have had his first win at Sochi in 2021. Of course, he stayed out when it started to rain, when everyone went in and he had a comfort, like he should have won that race. If he'd have gone in
Hmm.
with the rest of them, he would have won. But Japan that year, which at the time was later in the season, if I'm not mistaken, the Red Bull cars had a really amazing, like white livery that they made for that race. And that was like going all out. Uh, and I was like, yeah, why don't cars, I know the special liveries will add like a little hit of this or that nowadays, but no cars are going like just full all out, like making an entirely new livery for a race like that, like the Red Bull car did in Japan. And that was a stunning livery in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. What did you think of the Ferrari livery? Did you have an expectation that it was going to be like entirely blue? Or
Yeah.
what did you think
So
of its
I
look?
saw some of the preview photos, and it seemed like they had it seemed like leading up to the race that that's what they were going to do. They were going to fully lean into that Miami Vice sort of
Yeah.
thing, and it kind of just fell short.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm with you, man. If like let's for a special occasion, it's okay to just break away from tradition, and I don't know, maybe if it's any team that is probably not going to do that, or just maybe holds on to their livery the most, it's probably Ferrari, right? Because you think about the Ferrari red,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I guess if it's any team that I expect that from, it's probably them.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. Holding
yeah,
on, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'll
Talk
give a
about
shout
just
out.
letting your hair down, man.
I'll give a shout out to Instagram account Watch on My Wrist because he's the one that kind of like drove the point home for me, and it's something I hadn't like. I'll be honest, I liked the colorway, but until he kind of mentioned it, the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I guess they could have gone a lot farther
Yeah,
there into something, like really all out, which would have been kind of cool. But
right. Well,
where do
that's the one
you?
thing about liveries, though, man. They don't make your car faster.
They
You
don't
know,
make the car. They might even make it slower if you're putting a bunch of
right?
extra stuff on there.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. Who moved this thing around that, like,
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
where do you think, do you have any guesses on where Carlos Sainz Jr. might end up next year?
Man, I don't know. I don't know. There are some. So again, so this is like the sort of the inner workings here that I'm trying to understand. So Lewis is no longer going to be part of Mercedes, right? He's going to
Yeah, Lewis is
Ferrari,
going to
right?
Ferrari, so that
Right.
opens the seat at Mercedes. Um,
Correct.
and let's see
And we've
here.
got Alon Fernando. He's locked in at Aston,
He's locked in
right?
at Aston, yes, and it
Yep.
seems like Stroll probably is as well.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't. But in the thing about Mercedes, I think that seat is probably pretty attractive to Sainz, but they have
Hmm.
like one of the kind of hot young talents, Kimi Antonelli,
Right.
that's kind of up and coming. So I think they kind of want to hold that seat for him, and I think Carlos. They would probably let him in for a year, maybe two, but I think he's looking for something that would kind of secure his long-term future. So.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know what the
Yeah.
story will be there. And would they take him back at Red Bull,
Right.
where he once
Exactly.
was? But then,
Is Max
Sergio,
gonna stay at Red
like,
Bull?
well, yeah, exactly.
Like there's just so much stuff that's going
With
on.
how that pans out, yeah, with Adrian
Right.
Newey leaving,
Exactly.
I there's a lot up in the air, which is kind of
Yeah.
exciting. And of course, 2026 is the new engine regulation, so I think everything will kind of start from square one again in 2026, which is kind of exciting to think about. So yeah, yeah, a lot up in the air still. A lot yet
Do
to
you
be
think
decided.
this is the end for Ricardo? Like what's going on there?
Uh, yeah,
I
man,
love to love that guy.
I know, I know.
But yeah.
He seems to drive really well when he's like pissed off about something. Like
Yeah.
he came into that sprint race like on a tear and
Yeah.
finished P4 in the sprint race, so he's looking good, but couldn't quite match it in the qualifying for the race or the race
Hmm.
itself, unfortunately. So yeah, who knows? He needs to be a little more consistent, probably. Um,
I mean, let's
the
be
other,
real. Like anyone driving next to Yuki Tsunoda, like that doesn't like
it's got,
I mean,
yeah,
if he was my teammate, I cannot stand him, man. I absolutely cannot stand. He's fast,
he's fast. Yep. He's
but
got some
I mean,
growing up to do still, I think, maybe. And it's weird because the two personalities are probably like total opposites, right?
right.
Ricardo and,
Yeah.
and Yuki.
Yeah.
So maybe they need each other to balance out. I don't know.
Exactly.
But yeah, we'll see. Certainly Carlos Sainz, a super talented driver, obviously, and
Yeah.
has the last two Ferrari wins, which
Hmm.
there've only been two over the last couple of seasons. So
Yeah.
hopefully he'll end up somewhere great, and maybe we'll see Adrian Newey show up at Ferrari and build a car for Lewis, so he can get that eighth
Elusive.
that has eluded
Right.
him.
Right.
It's easy to think back to the 2021. If he'd won that last race and taken his eighth, if he'd be like sail off into the sunset, you
Hmm.
know, peace out, and like there's nothing left to accomplish. But now he's kind of, I don't know, like he's got to keep going to get to
Hmm.
try and put himself in an opportunity to get that eighth. I don't know if he cares about that at all.
I think he
Um,
does.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. I'm sure he's a competitor, right?
All right.
So anyways, 2026, that's the year that I'm looking forward to. And
Hmm.
if we can get like a semi-competitive second half of the season, don't get me wrong, I think Max is still going to win a lot more of the races, but
Hmm.
if we can get like four or five other drivers winning this season, I'd be pretty
Yeah.
jazzed about that.
Yeah.
So
You
we'll
can't
maybe
even count Alonso out as well. Like
can't
I
count
just feel like
Alonso out.
you can never count that guy out.
The car like Oscar, I think, is still
Yeah.
mega talented as well.
Hmm.
And of course Charles Leclerc, I think, is also super talented and quite
Hmm.
capable. So
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm excited to see what happens there. And of course, they have the up and coming driver, Oliver Behrman, who
Right.
scored points in his only race of the season when
Mm-hmm.
Ricardo was getting his appendix taken out. So,
Yeah.
so it'll be fun to see where he lands as well. All right, maybe that's enough F1 talk. If you're still listening at this point and you're like, I don't care about F1, sorry. But on the mind here, after all that, and I know that you and I are both appreciating and enjoyers of F1. So,
Yeah.
all
I'm
right. So
still
tell me
learning,
about
man.
this. Look, this it's always the case.
Yeah.
This is never, and that's look. If you're a curious guy and if you're a curious person in general, there's certain things that you can get into where you're always learning something,
Mm-hmm.
and I that's what I like about like photography, for instance,
Yeah.
or watch it. Like there's always new things to learn and that are out there. So that's kind of what I like about these hobbies, and F1 is certainly like the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So and it's pretty exciting to watch most of the time.
Yeah, for
uh,
sure.
all right, so you've been at Analog Shift now for a
So I
while.
Yeah, yeah. So for I want to say 8 months now
Okay.
over at Analog. Yeah.
Yeah. This is, of
Yeah.
course, our friend James Lambden's outfit that is now a
Mm-hmm.
part of Watches of Switzerland. So
Right.
they've got their own counter here at the shops where you can get their kind of curated selection of watches.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the experience been like there? And tell me about some of the like most impressive watches that you've gotten to experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, I one of the things that I've mentioned to you before, like when I was working with you, was that I felt like I didn't really have the hands-on experience to kind of curate a solid opinion or being able to kind of compare one watch to another. And yes, we were able to kind of there's only so much new watches that you can get your hands on, right? But it's a tactile hobby, right? And you
Yeah.
can only understand a watch or develop your own opinion about something when you have it in hand and when it's on your wrist. And my 8 months at Analog Shift, dude, the amount of watches that I've had in hand has gone up exponentially.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, just in general, just the volume of watches that I've been able to hold and handle and just understand, like, oh, okay, like I get it now. Like I get a stone dial, I get a tourbillon,
Hmm.
I get
Hmm.
a Patek. That's like one of
Sure.
those things where,
Yeah.
I never I, I don't want to say I never really cared for. I think I've always gravitated toward Vacheron because people always talked about AP, people always talked about Patek, but you know, just having these pieces in hand, especially Patek Philippe, and just kind of understanding their history and kind of what they should be known for in high complication as opposed to their integrated steel sport watches,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But
They don't want to be either, trust me.
right, for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. But yeah, it's been an incredible experience. And I've just been there helping and just doing a whole lot of stuff. I mean, I guess you can consider me a utility hitter over there.
Right on, right on. Love it.
It's like one of those things where it's like, okay, well, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you get behind the camera? Can you be in front of the camera?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
sort of thing. Kind of
That's
like
great.
this episode, right?
Those are the
Just,
best experiences though.
right. You just hit me up and hey, like I'm here. I'll show up and I'll do my best, that sort of thing. But okay, crazy watches.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, yeah. Did you have you had one that you're like,
dude.
whoa?
Okay, listen, we've had three divers that came in all at the same time and iconic divers in their
Hmm.
own right. And again, I do use that term a lot,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
I'm guilty, but no, these ones are truly up there in the echelon of dive watches. So we had recently got a Blancpain 50 fathoms. This one was a lip signed
Hmm.
Blancpain. So lip being the storied French retailer. Um, and I didn't know this, but there was a time where Lip was offered the contract to manufacture the Blancpain by the folks over there and to create the 50 fathoms, and they turned it down because
Yeah.
they said, "Oh, we don't want an oversized clock.
I see. Yeah. Yeah.
on our wrists. So maybe not the smartest move on their part to turn that one down. So Blancpain, created the 50 fathoms, and this one has the lip signature, so it's double signed.
Yep.
Oh, actually, so rewinding there just for a little bit of history, then Lip and Blancpain ended up signing an agreement for Lip to become the sole distributor of the 50 fathoms,
Mm.
right? So it's funny how that kind of comes full circle, that sort of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, this one is an incredible watch. I've never, like it took me a while to warm up to the 50 fathoms, and I do gravitate towards more of the vintage examples, but this one was so cool. It's, as I said, double signed, and it also has the moisture indicator,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to some iterations that you see that has the Inca block
Yeah.
insignia on the
Labeling.
X6
Yeah.
o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what I also think is just super cool about this watch is that on the case back, you have the double signature as well. But then when you unscrew the case back, there's a dust shield that also has a lip signature, a Blancpain signature, and an Aqualung signature.
Oh,
So that
cool.
kind of
Yeah.
like speaks to the Doxa guy in me, or
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
scuba diver enthusiast in me. So yeah, that was one. And then we had a tidy 62 Moss that came in just untouched. Um, Super cool. What else is there to say about the
Yeah.
Seiko
Yeah.
62
Yeah.
Moss, right? The
Legend.
OG,
Yeah.
right? And then we had an Omega Seamaster military,
Oh,
Omega
interesting.
Seamaster 300 military.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this one with incredible provenance, and dude, it's in awesome condition. And the owner, the original owner, who served in the British Army,
Mm-hmm.
and the original owner's son provide a handwritten letter, kind of confirming its provenance and kind of
Uh,
talking about pulling journal entries from the original owner's uh, experience
yeah.
on the
Yeah.
battlefield, and just kind of reading through and understanding, wow, like this watch was here, this watch was there. And it also comes with its full service records. And dude, that's just the one thing that that's just a pleasure for me in
Yeah.
general. It's just, I love the storytelling aspect of it.
Yeah.
And you and I talk about how, we like to build memories into our watches. And uh I think vintage watches, they or vintage objects in general, they just have this certain like soul about them.
Yeah.
And stuff like that, where it's like you have it in your hand and you could already kind of like feel this certain energy and aura about it. And then to have the story and some of the evidence to kind of back up what this watch is about and where it was and where it's been, it's pretty cool, man. So I think those trio of divers are one of the cool,
That'd make a nice little
incredible
three
cool.
watch collection there.
Yeah,
There,
for
it's the
sure,
story.
for
Did
sure.
did the Omega have like Her Majesty service markings or Ministry of Defense
Yes, yeah,
markings
yep.
on it? Oh,
Had the
very
broad
cool.
arrow
Yeah.
marking on the case back, had its military codes.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, sword hands. You have that big triangle marker at 12 o'clock, that quintessential Seamaster 300 design. You have the uh is there, no, I think it's the straight lugs, not the twisted lugs, right?
Yeah. Okay.
not
Okay.
not not the ones that you see on the Seamaster 300s now with the helium escape valve. and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also on your the 2254, right, has the, or no, you have the
I have the
2253.
3150. It's the
Oh
titanium
my
one.
goodness.
Yeah, with
I
the Peter
totally
Blake
just botched.
dial and the.
Yeah, I
I know
totally
it's a
just
lot of
botched that
numbers.
reference.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a great watch,
Yeah.
by the
Yeah.
way. But yeah, those are the three that have come through the office. And dude, there's a handful of more that I just can't remember at the moment, but those three do come to mind.
No, you get some really epic watches to come through the office there. I'm really
Hmm.
glad that you're getting the experience to
Yeah.
go hands-on with them, learn about the history and all that. That kind of like adds a lot of depth to not only like appreciating some of the watches that came out
Hmm.
then, but kind of guiding the way in how we should think
Yeah.
about watches now and how we can put them to use for future generations
Hmm.
and how it's like a responsibility almost, right?
Hmm.
Like it's we've talked before about watches like modern watches. when people look back like we do, like us right now, we're looking back at these 50, 60, 70-year-old watches and kind of awing at what they've been through and the
Hmm.
stories that they hold and their history and their provenance. I don't want in 50 to 60 years from right now, people to look back at certain watches and be like, whoa, well, this is a watch that like, was on this, Instagram celebrity's wrist or sold for
Hmm.
that much at auction. Like that can't be the story, right? Like there has
Hmm.
to be more to it than that for future generations to really grasp onto and get pulled into the space as deeply as we have. So, I think it comes down to like us making these kinds of interesting, memories and experiences and provenance of the watches of these modern watches to start laying the groundwork for
Hmm.
that. I know that this era is very different from 50, 60 years ago where those watches were maybe like a necessities and tools and stuff like that, so it has to be about something else. But there's no reason we still can't put these watches to use and kind of
For
build up
sure.
that kind of vibe or feeling with them, so and document it along the way, which I know is
Yeah.
something that like is important for you and I to do, and that has what has driven us both to do things like get dive certified and
Hmm.
get out looking for adventures. You hiked up Mount Whitney. I know.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of an experience was that? Like,
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that I want to, I want to feel what that's like with some of the watches, and some of the
Hmm.
watches that I have are like inspire me to want to do that. That I in ways that like I otherwise would not be inspired, I suppose,
Hmm.
to do
Yeah.
that.
I
I
feel
mean, I,
like
I like being active and outside and all that kind of stuff, but you know what I
for
mean.
sure.
Like this is kind of like the next level thing.
Yeah. Hey man, like if you have an object, whether it's a watch, whether it's a bag, and it can kind of push you to do things that you've always wanted to do or experience new things, then I'm all the more for it. And I
Yeah.
I do recall one of your recent videos that you had put out on the Deep Track YouTube channel. It's the four reasons why I collect watches or something in that vein, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
you reason number three is the experience, right? And I'm like, come on, man, that's what it's all about. You know,
Yeah.
whether it's a vintage watch, whether if it's a vintage gold dress watch that kind of makes that changes an outfit and kind of elevates how you feel, whether it's a nice suit or it's a jeans and a t-shirt, or if it's a more modern dive watch and it makes you want to dive, or a field watch that makes you want to hike a mountain or just kind of go around the corner and find a hill to walk
Yeah,
up,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
come on,
It
man,
doesn't have to be the
that's
most
what.
exotic stuff in the world.
No, it doesn't have
Yeah,
to. It doesn't have to be, man. And I feel like that's what it's all about. And also just micro brands in general, like you had mentioned, but just about these different stories that are being told. Dude, that's why I appreciate micro brands as well, because like we're seeing their story develop in real time,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You look at the Wittenauers of the world, and these other kind of like defunct brands, and like they had their story and they were the microbrands of that era, right? And then
yeah,
now we're seeing the Baltics of the world, the Lauriers of the world, the Lorcas of the world,
yeah,
the Notices, the Raven, like it's cool, man. And I love how these sort of brands gives you an opportunity to talk to these people behind the brand, and these guys, they truly care about what they're putting out.
yeah. Yeah, they do. There's a lot of
So
passion
yeah.
in there with these enthusiasts, which is great. And we're the benefactors because we're
Oh, for
totally
sure.
spoiled for choice, and because
Yeah.
there's so many awesome watches being put out.
Yeah.
There's like too
Yep.
many. Like we need to kind of spread it out.
Oh man. Yeah, which
We're,
is why I kind of appreciate what happened at Watches and Wonders this year. Dude, like,
yeah,
sometimes you just need kind of a quiet year.
yeah.
Let the designs breathe a bit.
Yeah, yeah, it
But
doesn't need to be fireworks every year.
right.
It can be, these aren't sneakers. It's not the fashion industry. Some people
Hmm.
maybe kind of like think it is, but I don't view it that way. And before I let you go here, what was the watch that stood out to you? Was there any standouts of Watches and Wonders this year, or any watches that you saw that got you excited? What was your takeaways?
Yeah, dude, the Zenith divers.
Yes,
The
yeah,
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 so cool,
yeah,
so much fun. uh they had that one-to-one, almost one-to-one recreation. I forget that reference number, but so spot on. And then they also had the modern example, the Defy Extreme, I believe, right?
yeah. The
So
DeFi
that
Extreme
one is just
Diver.
so cool. I'm a sucker for Loom.
Yeah.
I've said it so many times. I've been on record, with on the mic and just in my articles, dude. Like, I just love loom, and the fact that that has like three tricolor loom,
Yeah. Yep.
and
Yep.
it's just it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's
It's funky.
70s.
It's
It's
funky.
funky.
I
Yeah,
love
man.
that. And it's I
Yeah.
love the DeFi Extreme Diver, the new one that they
Yeah.
came out with. I'm like eagerly awaiting getting my hands on that, and
Awesome.
will promptly be
Oh, I can't
booking
wait.
a dive trip when I do.
Yeah.
And you know who else? I just recently interviewed their new CEO, Benoit de Klerk. He is a diver as well. So he's
Really?
like very
Okay.
excited about it. So yeah,
Interesting.
I was surprised. He came from Panerai as a COO, operations guy, Panerai. I was like, I don't know, how's this going to fit with the Zenith, who's
Right.
been kind of on this upward trend. Uh,
Yeah.
but I liked him a lot, and he was just as kind of candid as Julian Tornare was,
Right.
the outgoing CEO and a diver. So I'm like, okay, maybe this will work out. Okay. Things are in good hands there. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe around that time you and I can find a dive trip to go on together and put these
Yes.
things to use,
I'm
man.
Listen, man, I am on track to get my advanced open water. That's kind of the next step for me.
Yeah,
And I am itching. I am itching to get out and about.
it's
I've been
almost that
grounded.
season.
Yeah, I've been grounded for the past few months, and I'm just ready to go explore and to do these things. Get my advanced water. Get some outdoors time. Yeah, so you're right. It is about that season. So
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah,
we get to do some fun things, and there's a watch on wrist, and a camera in hand, and we'll be able to talk about it
absolutely,
sometime on our
absolutely.
next pod.
Let's hit it with that, man. All right. Well, Thomas, thanks so much for joining me today. It's been a huge pleasure as always to see you and get to chat with you. Onward and upward, and many more adventures to come from here, my friend.
Of course, man. Thank you. And again, just I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity to come on the pod and to hang out. And again, like I said, hopefully there's more opportunities like this. And I am so excited to see what you have going on with the deep track. And I've been following along, and everything you've been putting out is fantastic. So I'm sure that someone who's listening will already understand that. So, but
Well,
yeah, dude,
yeah.
likewise to you, onward and upward, my man.
I truly appreciate that, and thank you again for your time.
Hmm.
Always a treat to talk to you. I will leave links to most of the stuff that we've talked about below, so check that out, and keep an eye out for more reporting and a photo report of my time in Miami that will be going live. I've partnered up with Robb Report to bring them some coverage, so that will be going up live there soon. Keep an eye out for that. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, take care.